can all say that he was a wonderful insight into the world and working life, really, of Prince William, the Prince of Wales, in that recent chat at Windsor, which I just thought was delightful, right? Just to get that out there, I thought it was wonderful because I think it really sort of opened up to a person that we didn't think we knew. You know, we think we know them, but do you know what I mean? You get to know a lot deeper. Let me tell you something also from a personal level about Prince William, right, chums? Here's the thing. Prince William, and I don't mean this rudely at all, he's a very handsome guy and he photographs well. But let me tell you, there's something more about him in the flesh. And I've seen this over the years with people, people that photograph beautifully on camera are not necessarily as good looking. I don't know if you've ever found this. In real life, you think, yeah, the camera loves them. Somehow it doesn't love them in real life as much. Prince William has that wonderful thing of being a very good looking, handsome guy on camera, but there's something more magnetic about him when you meet him in the flesh. And I've been lucky enough to meet him. And it's just one of those things where you kind of think, now he's got this most amazing blue eyes and he's very tall and very commanding in a room. I've been at some of the investitures and stuff like that, and you think, wow, there is a presence there. You can't buy that sort of presence. So it's nice when you think, of course, that we get to see a little bit of inside track. This isn't something really that's currently working, let's be brutally honest, for the ex-royals over in Montecito, Meghan and Harry. And behind the scenes, I can tell you things are going a little bit tetchy, to say the least. This is because Prince Harry's recent return back here to the United Kingdom, of which he'd hoped was going to be a success, but more of that later. Well, the problem that you have with Harry is that the fight between the two of them is truly all about where he wants his children educated. And you see, Harry, for all of his faults about the posh schools like Eton and Cambridge and Oxford and stuff like that, it's a world that he knows. And what you have to see is, and again, I'm not pitching children against each other, but when you look at the beautiful splendour and manners of Prince Louis, Princess Charlotte and Prince George, you can see that they are far more developed in many respects. We don't know what the Sussex children are like, but Harry apparently has been inspired by watching endless videos of Louis, George and Charlotte and thinking, this is the route that I should go down. The problem is, of course, his wife Meghan Markle doesn't want those children out of her sight, and you could suggest what mother would. I mean, it's thousands of miles away, and this would mean, in effect, this is Harry's sort of new plan, that he would spend a considerable amount of time over back and forth here in England while his eldest child Archie is educated. This, though, is creating a bit of a bombshell between the Waring Sussexes, as ever. Let me explain. Hi, good to see you. Thank you so much for joining me today on another special episode of By Royal Appointment. We're in the grips of the first autumnal sort of storm season, so do forgive me if it suddenly starts to get a bit noisy and a bit windy and a bit depressing. It is this time of year. It's nice to have your company anyway. And if you can, chums, please like and share and comment respectfully. This is your show. This is where, by Royal Appointment, we go behind the scenes a lot deeper. And just to retouch on the Apple interview, of course, with Prince William, as I said previously in an interview, video should I say, they liked it, I think, because Mr. Levy, whichever way you pronounce it, is, of course, an actor. And, William feels more comfortable just chatting to someone who he doesn't believe is going to try and trip him up into a, conscious effort to get that story out of him. And I think that's what made William very, very approachable. It's the sort of thing, of course, that Meghan Markle and Prince Harry would really, really like. But the problem is that their story is now pitted somewhere else completely differently. So why is Archie at odds with the wife over the education? Well, as I say, when he came back here to the United Kingdom recently, it really invigorated Harry. I think it would happen to most people. You've been a long time away from home. Suddenly you've got a week somewhere. You've got a purpose. And let's not forget, this is a purpose that he hasn't had for a while, where he's, seen friends. He's got commitments. He has to turn up on time. He's got certain meetings. As I pointed out, he had hoped on a number of occasions to get a longer stint with his father, His Majesty the King, King Charles, but that wasn't to happen. And that's Harry's fault. He wanted to meet his elder brother. That didn't happen. And then has he leaked out via his team, he did pop in, and this is a good point, pay his respects to the Duke of Kent, who sadly lost his wife, the Duchess of Kent, recently, lovely lady, as I mentioned previously. So Harry had a very jam-packed week. And suddenly, he's been driven around London, he's been taken to Nottingham, he's seen a world that he hadn't seen for a while. And suddenly he's free, because he's not now focusing on the one big problem, which is his wife. He always has to focus on her. It's, does she look great? Is she shaking hands first? Does he move out the way? He found his mojo again, many people suggest. And this was really something that didn't go down well behind the scenes over in Montecito. Meghan does not want to share the spotlight. I mean, people say, oh, you're critical. Look, you only have to watch her alongside Harry at the thing with Kevin Costner, The thing about that was she just wanted to, Harry cannot have that moment. Back here, he had a wonderful time with himself and really got to see whether it was still popular or not. The bigger problem that Harry had, and this was very hurtful for him according to that source, was the fact that he couldn't believe that there were not many people to visit him or see him up in Nottingham. You see, the PR team has said, no, you're terrific, people love you, no problem. Absolutely, everybody likes Prince Harry. And this is the thing of when you're a celebrity, I've told you this before. The problem is the people that you pay tell you you're terrific because you are paying them. The public decide whether they like you or not. And for Harry, this was a startling blast about where he's at. You see, Meghan believes that really when the children become older, she wouldn't mind having them homeschooled, privately educated within that enclave that is their house in Montecito. Harry believes, and according to a former staff member, that they need to integrate more. It's all very well Meghan saying that the children go to play groups and, interact with other children and parties and stuff. We don't see that, right? We've never seen that on the Disney stuff, on the pictures, there's nothing. They are not interacting with other children. Now, there's 2 points on this, in fairness and impartiality. Maybe the families don't want their children pictured with that, but I find that very hard to believe. It's kind of good for them. Or maybe, as always, Meghan's simply lying. Because, nobody on that school run in Montecito or the surrounding areas knows these children. Nobody has ever seen Meghan Markle dropping the children off. Now again, could be doing a disservice. Perhaps she turns up in dark glasses and a wig, maybe the blacked out car windows. Somebody somewhere must have seen this. Harry now realises that what his children require is to integrate, to get out there. And he believes having an education over in England, where he had, even though he had good and bad moments, he himself admits that. Well, now he wants this for Archie. My belief, though, is this, that I think that he wants this for Archie because it gives him a reason to come back. If his children are not educated over here, then once again, he's going to be trapped for a very long time. And beyond that, he's now looking at this to try and stretch his return back over here to England even further. Another element that Harry did when he was back here in the United Kingdom was simply this. He once again looked at the idea of a permanent home. You see, he doesn't like the fact that he doesn't have anything for himself. And one of the things that's really upset him, integrated him, annoyed him, whatever you want to call it, is the fact that his elder brother, the Prince of Wales, Prince William, is now moving into his forever home, and that lodge is going to be the sort of place where he sees himself bringing up his children, his 3 children. And we saw that again in the Apple TV thing, talking about how he wants to be a different sort of father, do things differently. I think all fathers do, and all mothers do. They always do what your parents do, but then look at it slightly differently and think we could do this. William's no different. Harry really is very much a follower, and he followed very much what Prince William did growing up. He admired him greatly, and he was the leader, the elder. That's what he looked towards. What's interesting here, though, is that, as I say, when Harry was over here, he liked the idea of, looking at a new house, a new home, something where he could put down roots. And again, according to excellent sources who know Harry, it's a way of really saying, I still need to come back. He doesn't have a reason to come back. None of the family want to mix with him. That doesn't look like it's going to change anytime soon. The bigger issue is this, and this is always the problem, you see, because Meghan Markle never wanted to change much about her life. She was happy in California. What she wanted was worldwide fame. When she came back and forth to the United Kingdom to try and get jobs and work and stuff like that, she had hoped that that was going to take off. It was going to, bust into something big, whether that be like Strictly Come Dancing or a reality TV show. She wasn't aiming high. People forget that, Meghan Markle was on the descent already, 30-odd-year-old plus actress, very pretty in many respects, but, lots of pretty girls decades younger. And this is the problem. It happens in every single sphere. You only have to look at the pop stars of, 5-10 years ago, the Selena Gomez's, right? The Ariana Grandes. Now they're seen as veterans. Where does that put Madonna? But, they're seen as veterans, and then people move on. Meghan was willing to try anything for the last roll of the dice. She found it in Harry. Harry found it in her. They are, in many respects, a perfect match, simply because, he just wants somebody to lead him into something. But now, as he's reaching his 40s and going into 14 and all of that sort of stuff, he's now thinking to himself, well, William's done this. William, what am I doing? Where is my direction? And what's interesting with Harry, and this is what came back again from a former staff member, Meghan doesn't want to live in the United Kingdom, doesn't see a value in the property. And that's where the Portuguese story came around. She liked the idea of being somewhere warm, sort of a holiday home, which wasn't a permanency, you see? So she couldn't be trapped in there permanently. Going to Portugal every now and again, not too bad. But of course, a home, maybe in England, she's going to have to maybe 2 or 3 months. She doesn't want that. She's told Harry, according to an excellent source, that the only thing that she would consider would be living back on the Windsor estate. And there are 2 reasons for this, maybe 3 in fact. I believe that the reason why she wants to live back on the Windsor estate is it gives her prestige, security and power. And of course, she believes that that will show the true popularity of the monarchy. Meghan's back in town, flags waving, everything's there back and forth, the sort of thing. And that means that she could never truly have this, because that particular remit is now down to the Prince of Wales, Prince William. And if he says, I don't want them living on the Windsor estate. I mean, for William, between you and I, it's bad enough now that on the Windsor estate he has Uncle Andrew, according to that source. You see, the Duchess and Duke of York have become a very public embarrassment. And that's part of the reason that wasn't going to be discussed, alongside, of course, the chat with the Apple TV. Didn't want that, didn't want to know it. You see what I mean? It's because this is the problem. William touched on Harry in the Apple TV in the minimalistic way, because it had to be brought up. You couldn't leave it out. Meghan, though, very cleverly thinks, well, I want to live in Windsor, and she'd always wanted to live in Windsor, really, even though she'd lived in, Frogmore Cottage and Nottingham Cottage. She wanted something bigger. And as I told you originally, Harry claimed that he too had been looking at this particular house on the Windsor estate. People don't realise how many properties there are, and there are choice cuts on that, right? But Meghan didn't want to be sat somewhere in a tiny cottage, which apparently Oprah Winfrey thought was, dreadful, She thought, no, I need something bigger. So very cleverly, she's tied Harry in knots, even with the trajectory idea of, well, we could live there. I could feel secure there, knowing full well that, whether Harry's worked that bit out or not, that Harry cannot pull that in. You see what I'm saying? So now it's back to the drawing board, and what you'll read about our stories in the media very soon about Harry possibly looking at things like the Cotswolds. This is because Ellen DeGeneres is still there. This is because that's where the elitist people live. But they don't want to live with the elitist people. They like to be away from people because they don't want to go under public scrutiny. And there lies your bigger problem. Meghan wants to be out of it so nobody can say she does this or she goes to that place, etc. Windsor served an excellent purpose. She didn't want Buckingham Palace because, no, it's too big. And everybody knows Buckingham Palace, they don't think of it as Meghan's place. Meghan wanted to make sure by being in Windsor, when she returned back, that created a bomb, excitement, celebrity. And suddenly, people will be talking about her again. It's always back to Meghan. And this is where the bigger issue also lies for Harry, because behind the scenes, as we know, he's very much a fan of the world of therapy. and he wants to talk about his feelings at every golden opportunity. Now, I'm not knocking that, chums, if that's your bag, but my sort of advice to anybody on that sort of stuff is good cup of tea, couple of bickies, tell your problems to your friend. If they don't want to know, don't be shy, talk to the wall, because that won't answer back. But you know what I'm saying? Sometimes if you say it out yourself and you say, stop being so ridiculous here, let's get on with it, count your blessings, look where you are, there's always somebody worse off. It's that mantra, isn't it? But Harry, apparently, according to that source, is very concerned that he simply can't deliver exactly what Meghan wants. And what Meghan wants really is this. Harry's provided many things since marrying Meghan Markle. I mean, he's given her, the world. He's given her fame that she could only have dreamt about. But she's never happy. And this is according to staff members. She never sees the bright side of things. And we saw that recently with the sit-down chat with the Bloomberg originals, remember? And, she's like, oh, I know this is a funny thing, but having to wear, pantyhose, that is Meghan Markle, trust me. Staff members have told me it doesn't matter what you do, what you get right, she will find an issue that is just not quite, that you've delivered exactly what she needed to make it a success. But if you could try a little bit harder, maybe you might be able to just get that pat on the head from somebody like Meghan, That's really how it works. Harry's been trying for years, ever since 2016. Meghan spun him like a spinning top, into sort of all the charitable stuff, saving the elephants, all of whatever. A very accomplished person in making you feel very special. The person who worked with her, if you remember, Edward Enninful on Vogue, he literally found her absolutely magnetic and, thought she was terrific fun because she created that character each and every time that she went into Vogue. And of course, he knew this was going to put his name, etc., on the map. But with everybody with Meghan, there's never a return, simply because at the point of the return, something goes wrong. She decides she doesn't like you, like, the friend Jessica. She did everything. People forget just how instrumental Jessica was in pushing up the brand of Meghan Markle, right? And she did so much for her in Canada, introducing her to all the best parties, the right designers, the elitists, everything like that. And Meghan, after the wedding, virtually cut her dead. You see, Meghan believes that if you are not 100% wholly behind her, then you can't be part of her world. Harry is now married to this, and the little indications about this were all there in those chats. What is interesting when you look at Meghan Markle is the way that she does open her personality without people realizing it. You see, Meghan very much sat down and said, that man loves me so much. He's so supportive, etc. She never span it back and said, likewise, I'm so supportive of him. I can't believe, I'm so lucky to have married this guy. The best she could throw out was, he's incredibly handsome, right? Or he's a fox, haven't you noticed that? Very, very banal compliments back to Harry. According to a source, you see, Prince Harry gets incredibly down simply because, he's often been cited as hearing the words from Meghan that, look what I gave up for you, this is not what I wanted. What Meghan wants, you see, as he famously said, Meghan gets. This is because her father, many people say, absolutely spoiled her. Nothing wrong with that. That's Thomas Markle's prerogative. Probably wanted to be, the second time around, an even better father. That's how it works, doesn't it? But of course, spoiling somebody can make it very difficult for those that take her on. Now, Meghan believes that Harry hasn't delivered exactly what he thought or she thought he was going to do. Not the acres of coverage and the magazine covers and stuff like that. Meghan wanted to do this independently. Hence the reason she started this entrepreneurial claptrap, right? And the thing is, part of the problem is Harry is the problem. Now, Harry doesn't believe this. Harry doesn't believe he's the problem. But what I mean by the problem is this. You see, without Harry, she's nothing. Nobody wants to talk to her. No magazine is interested. No invite comes as a solo invite. And many people who've worked alongside these two tell me that. It's always Prince Harry, the Duke and Duchess. Meghan wants these invites to come independently. And she thought this would happen really with her brand, First American Riviera Orchard. She absolutely 100% thought that this was going to turn her into a billionairess overnight almost, because people around her, and it goes back to what I was saying before, chums, people around them go, you're terrific, you're wonderful, you're brilliant, everybody loves you. What's the worry? What's the problem here? Now, the problem that you have if you are Meghan Markle is, of course, people don't love you. People are not going to buy into the brand instantly. And Harry now has to find a way of keeping that going with his wife, making sure that her ego is very much flattened out. But the problem now that he's at sort of a conjuncture with himself, because his ego has taken a battering for many years. He reads the press. Make no mistake, chums, Harry and Meghan devour that platform, whatever, the whole media. They read everything about them. I know Meghan Markle watches this, right, Meghan? And I know for a fact they look at things, and particularly if people have said, why don't they do this? Suddenly they copy that, because ultimately she's a failed actress and he's just a prince. They're not creative people. They can hire creative people, but again, it falls down to if you can persuade that person to actually do what you want, the sort of thing. Now, the problem that Harry's got is, how does he twist this back into something more, palatable for Meghan? Now, he thought that by going back down the charitable route, that was going to work. But as we know, Centre Barley has been an absolute sting in the tail. And anybody knows in the charitable world that the problem behind that, and this was the biggest issue, was the fact that Harry had to get on to the phone to the lady, the boss of the Centre Barley, and basically say, get in front of the camera, get on social media and apologise in round to my wife. And Harry lost all of that over the fact that she wouldn't do it. He could have said, you know what, totally agree, don't worry, bit of a mistake, won't happen again, really sorry. No. He let all of that walk out of the door because Meghan needed a public apology. Now, as I said in the earlier part of the video, what's opened Harry's eyes behind the scenes is coming back here to the United Kingdom. And he's suddenly finding the fact that actually there could be something else, there could be another life, and the other life I could maybe do still independently, all the while keeping his marriage and his children and all of that sort of thing together. Now, what's interesting is the next stage of what I'm about to tell you. According to an excellent source, when Prince Harry came back to the United Kingdom, as I say, he was invigorated, right? And he was looking for a brand new direction. And behind the scenes back in Montecito, the rest of the team are still beavering away, trying to save the very much neglected, I don't know what you want to call it really, chums, but whatever they've now got, whatever's remaining, right, to keep that going, to make sure the brand keeps going, even though when you think about it, Meghan started 2025, thinking the world was at her feet, writing in the sand, Harry giggling, chasing her around on the sand. This was all meant to be carefree, fun, etc. Meghan is already citing the fact that 2025 has not been her best year. I mean, she's openly said that to staff members. But as ever, it's never, sorry about the pun there, chums, but as ever, it's never her fault. No. You see, the problem is everything went wrong from the start. And Meghan said this previously, but think about this for 2025. You see, she blames the fact that everything started off, kind of all right the first few days. And then unfortunately, the wildfires in LA was an absolute shambles. And she decided that this was going to be detrimental to promoting her brand, her, launch show, which was then bumped to March. So the impetus for people to watch this in, say, the dark days of winter over here in the United Kingdom, where she's convinced Ted Sarandos that they're still incredibly popular. And he's also pointed out, you have to look deeper into what these people are saying. He's also pointed out that this is where her brand is very popular. He said that she's a remarkable person. But on top of that, he's also said that it did incredibly well in Europe, and in particular Great Britain. Of course it did, people like to see the failures. I mean, it's just, without being unkind, that's your problem, right? People like to look at that. Now, the bigger issue is, as she wrote in 2025, she thought that by bumping the programme, that was another problem. Then the products weren't ready. Then they allegedly sold out. And behind the scenes of all of that, Not one major brand wants to get on board. And the thing is, this is all about brand chaos, right? It's just chaotic the way that that's run. Over the last couple of weeks, we've seen Meghan do nothing other than post these weird videos, and in particular one for her husband on his birthday with the Denise Williams, Let's Hear It for the Boy, as he's, in this sort of tank doing some sort of surfing. I know she probably means well, but even the song, Let's Hear It for the Boy, bit of a gay anthem, right? So possibly not the right music, I mean, maybe What a Man by Destiny's Child, maybe, but maybe she's fallen out with them, That's the problem. You never know why she picks a certain thing. Of course, maybe that's the year that Meghan remembers she likes that particular song. But what's interesting here is, as I say, 2025 was going to be the big thing. Everybody told her, particularly her team, the one, not this one because she's got a new one, but the one before that was fired, right? And the other people around her, that once the brand launched, people would come on board. She's been very distraught at the fact that it's not worked, but it's not her fault, you see, because she's learning and people should see that, but they should want to get on board, they should want to come and see it, etc. They haven't. So where is Harry in all of this? Well, an interesting development that happened after his recent visit, because I can tell you that Harry reached out to various people regarding whether he could be of any assistance, and again, I have to say allegedly, to the now defunct charities of the Duchess of York, Sarah Ferguson. You may remember that Sarah's now been let go, I think, of 7, maybe 12 charities. There were many behind the scenes that a lot didn't know about. This is, of course, because of the debacle regarding the Duchess of York, the Duke of York, Prince Andrew, and the associations with the Epstein scandal. And Harry, according to this excellent source, thought this was a terrific, motor into, well, maybe. Now, here's the theory. You see, if he does that, right, and he gets behind those charities, and perhaps he could be quite useful to them, who knows? If he does that, then he has a reason to keep coming back. And this is what it keeps coming down to. Now, Meghan, according to that source, has no idea about Harry's intentions of wanting to reignite more charitable things over here. As I say, the Centre Barley thing at the start of the year was another issue. And Meghan felt, you see, that when Harry had lost the security, which was also another bombshell. And interesting to note, as I mentioned previously, that the British government have still to point out as and when that particular big bill is going to be paid. You get the picture there, right? So interestingly with this, Meghan felt that all the negative PR of things like Centre Barley, the security stuff, was all impacting on that brand fan base that she could have picked up as and when she'd had a clear view. And it goes back to how Harry is then positioned, you see? So suddenly it's now his fault that this is not working because of all the things that allegedly he's done. But it's not what he's done, it's what Meghan required. She required a public apology. Perhaps Harry felt the same thing too, but that wasn't going to work out. Now they're looking down this route, or he is independently, of whether he could get back into some charitable work over here. You see, it wouldn't be as damning, would it? And, as I pointed out, with the well child thing, it's worked quite well for him in many respects. He got a lot of plaudits, he was warmly welcomed, even if the great British public didn't necessarily want to see him back or indeed line the streets to meet him. This was a significant moment for Harry, that perhaps there was still a silver lining there at the end. As for Meghan, though, well, now there's popular sort of elements that came out of the recent final batch of As Ever with Love Meghan, whatever that's called, right, was the fact that, as the boss Tad Serendos said, she can generate headlines. There's no two ways about that. But the headlines, some might say for all the wrong reasons. It's a bit like the podcast that nobody was interested in. All we remember is Meghan's medical dilemmas, right? She had this, she had that, whatever the person had. I had that too, but mine's bigger because look, I've got a bigger flag, So it's a bit of that, and there lies your problem when you are somebody like Meghan. You can't supersede her because she tells you things. Now, if you remember on that particular chat, she pointed out that, she was kind of interested in the things she misses about England, and the guy that she had on, the very nice, affable guy, I can't remember his name now, but he was, doing his best to jig up a deadbeat show, right? And we didn't really see them doing anything. And he sort of said, oh, when did you know? Who said I love you first? Oh, Harry. Could never be Meghan. Always Harry, you see, has to be pushed down, has to be pointed out that he was the one that was begging for this actress, to go along with it, right? Interesting then, he said, well, what do you miss about England? No, she didn't miss anybody, really, no family-related members, no nothing, not the people, not the kind-hearted people that line the street. She didn't say that. She didn't mention the weather, any cooked foods, anything. There was no warm memory. The thing she missed? Oh, right, yeah, this. Magic FM, or as it's known over here in the United Kingdom at times, sometimes Tragic FM. You see, according to Meghan, she loved that show and she loved the channel and she just loved the music. And when you think about it, the music that she uses on her TV show, right? Well, it's the sort of music that they would play, a real mixed bag of golden oldies that we all love, cherish, remember. And at times, let's be honest, chums, you might sing along as you're washing up or doing something in the house. It's just there, isn't it? Now, the story went, of course, that Magic FM, which is owned by Bauer Media over here in the United Kingdom, they very quickly seized the opportunity to make sure that they got some publicity. And even the head of the channel, oh, we'd love to get Meghan on. It fizzled out. Because even though at this point of recording it's not totally ended, but looks like it's going to be, you see, Markle would want something more, money, right? And the thing is, I can see their point of view. She's an unknown quantity. If I was the head of that channel, I'd say, well, you flopped at podcasting, you flopped at TV. I'm not willing to take a risk with you on radio. Let's test this out on a great period, the festive period, and maybe you host your own show, which will give you all the works. You just introduce the records with a few asides, a few nice memories, maybe a few nods, of course, to the United Kingdom. As I say, at the point of recording this, it's not totally over, but looks like it's going that way because, of course, somebody like Meghan would expect to get a lot of money. I mean, that's what she says. I'm a celebrity. If I can bring these people in, why wouldn't I be paid? When Harry, for instance, was the guest editor for the BBC Radio 4 programme, The Today Show, you remember that infamous chat where he sat down and basically said, this is the family that Meghan's never had. He wasn't paid for that. He was guest editor, and I think they made a donation to a charitable cause. He certainly wouldn't have been paid. That's the difference in the worlds of Harry and Meghan. And that truly, again, I know I often say this, chums, is where they're at. Because, she realizes the value that they need to be paid. They have to earn money. He just thinks we can do it. This is good for us. But that's the world that he knows. Ultimately, for Harry, he's now got to try and balance the two. And it's a match that is not really made in heaven. Meghan wants money. Ideally, wants to become a billionaire. And the bigger problem is she doesn't see becoming a billionaire with some of Harry's madcap ideas. If he does pick up some of Sarah's charities, what are they going to pay? And that just means Harry getting glory over in the United Kingdom. Where does Meghan fit in for that? Nowhere. This is the problem, as I see it right now in the Montecito marriage. Anybody else agree? As ever, thank you for joining me on the latest episode of By Royal Appointment. If you can, chums, please like, share, and as ever, comment respectfully. And whatever the weather is doing to you right now, do stay safe. Neil Sean, Kensington, London.